Aloha! Welcome back to the Bishop Museum's Library and Archives. I'm Hadley Andersen.
I'm DeSoto Brown, the Bishop Museum historian.
And what are we talking about today, DeSoto?
Well, because it's Throwback Thursday, so of course it's historic, we are talking about something that used to be extremely important here in the Hawaiian Islands, which is coming to its end. What is that?
I want to say sugarcane.
You are absolutely
right?
correct. The growing and harvesting and processing of sugarcane. And sugarcane not only transformed the landscape in lots of different ways because there was a tremendous amount of acreage devoted to growing it, but the reason a lot of us are here at all is because of the sugar industry.
Sugar was like gold, wasn't it?
Well, sugar was like gold. It was the major foundation of the economy here, and after 1876, when the Reciprocity Treaty was signed between the nation of Hawaii and the United States, and that allowed sugar from Hawaiian Islands to be imported into the U.S. without extra tariffs. The industry here grew tremendously.
Wow.
And my point about people being here is that so many workers were needed that people were brought in from many different countries, and that's why lots of us are here today, because we are descended from people who came here to work in the sugar industry. And I don't exclude myself from that, because my two great-grandfathers came here in the 1870s. Because the economy grew so much after that Reciprocity Treaty, they decided to come from San Francisco, where they both were living just independently of each other, said, hey, that's a happening place, let's go there.
Nice.
And it was all because of sugar. So what I want to show everybody today, and you too, is to show them how sugar was processed. Now, I said lots of people had to come here and work, and initially the sugar planting and the sugar harvesting required a lot of handwork, a lot of people to do things. So in this photograph, you see two men who are cutting the sugarcane stalks, and that's how that was done for a great many years, by hand, men using a machete in one hand and holding the stalk with the other hand would cut it off and leave it on the ground.
Well, now it's really interesting with sugarcane too, because there are so many different varieties, just like any other plant. Right?
Correct.
That some of them grow in certain ways. Some of them are tighter with the sugarcane stalks, and some of them are a little bit bigger. So, they also vary in sweetness and juice as well.
And with any type of major crop, there's always going to have been a lot of development of more varieties which were more productive, which grew better, which grew faster, which had better flavor, higher sugar content, and things like that. And there was something called the Hawaii Sugar Planters Association, the HSPA, that was devoted just to doing that.
Oh, wow, okay.
So when those sugarcane stalks were cut, and that's the way it was done originally, then those same people, or different people, who went out in the fields and gathered up all those stalks, those cut down stalks, they had to load them into carts, and that's what you see is going on in this photograph. Now, this isn't actual sugar harvesting. This is a competition that was being held in Kapiolani Park for the second annual Hawaii Territorial Fair in 1919 to see who could load sugarcane stalks the fastest. And this, as you can see, is labeled Maui because they had different teams from representing different islands.
I was going to ask who was competing.
And who was competing. So they obviously had competitions on different islands, and then the winner from each island then competed in this grand competition. But it meant that you had to walk up this little sort of catwalk thing,
right,
holding a huge bundle of sugarcane and dump it into this big cart. Well, once that was done, then those carts full of sugarcane stalks had to get transported to the sugar mill. And initially, this was done using animals. And so in this photograph, you see that there are oxen pulling a long train of carts back here. And there's probably, although I cannot see this clearly too well in this photograph, but they used to lay tracks down in the fields that were like electric train tracks, except big ones that could accommodate, that were portable, so they could carry these big sections of track, put them down, fit them together, and then they could pull the carts over what otherwise would just be the sugarcane field. Well, in addition to using animals, they gradually began to mechanize things, and this is a steam plow, and it is also pulling one of those carts full of cut sugarcane stalks, which I will show you right there. And a steam plow is actually a steam engine which means that it burns coal and it gets hot and it produces steam, and then that makes things turn. And there were, of course, steam. There were steam. What am I trying to say? Steam shovels that did construction, and there were also lots of steam locomotives that pulled trains. And so this is before the development of the internal combustion engine. This is earlier in the 1800s. This was the technology which was eventually replaced by internal combustion engines, gasoline engines, and diesel engines.
Do you know when they first started to plant sugarcane and start to harvest sugarcane in large quantities here?
As I said, starting in the 1830s, there were some early attempts to get a sugarcane industry going here, but it really didn't take off until 1876 with the Reciprocity Treaty. And then it also coincides with developments in technology that allow you to be more productive. And so for a long time, the Hawaiian sugar industry was really productive, assisted partly by the types of technology.
But up until how long was it sorry, up until about how long was it hand harvested?
Until the 1920s and 30s, they began to change. And I have a photograph that'll show that to you as well. But that's okay. But in addition to the steam plows and tractors and animals that pulled those big carts of sugarcane stalks, they also had, in the different plantations, had their own individual railroads.
Wow.
So this is the Oahu Sugar Company plantation, which was at Ewa on Oahu. And you can see that this locomotive is labeled OS Company, Oahu Sugar Company. And in addition to those temporary tracks that I was talking about, they also had permanent train tracks, so that these small train systems would go out to different parts of the plantations, pick up sugarcane and take it to the mill. And I mean, you know, it's something that's totally gone today. And there are people, of course, a lot of people who remember these, but if you don't remember them, you'd have no idea that they ever even existed. Well, you mentioned, you just asked me about harvesting.
Right.
And gradually by the 1930s, a lot of the harvesting became mechanized. And so instead of people going out and cutting the individual sugarcane stalks, they'd have bulldozers go onto the field, bulldoze all the sugarcane together in big piles, and then these cranes would come, pick up the big piles, and dump them into big trucks. So during my lifetime, it was big trucks that you saw carrying harvested sugarcane, and there were what were called cane haul roads, which were big roads that were built sometimes next to highways in the sugarcane fields, and the public was never supposed to drive on those because they were only meant for these big trucks. And when these big trucks were being driven around, you always saw out in the rural areas next to the roads or on the roads little pieces of sugarcane stalks that had fallen off of them, and that was something that, you know, again, people will remember, but now it's totally gone. Well, so and again, that's our sugar history for right this minute. And again, the sugar industry will end at the end of this year, 2016, on the island of Maui. The HC&S company is the last surviving sugar plantation, and all of that stuff that I just showed you, most of it's gone already, but end of this year it'll be all gone forever. Absolutely. Which is a huge change for a lot of the way things worked here all the time. But before we go, one more thing to talk about, and that's to let you know about our upcoming Journeys exhibit. And the Journeys exhibit is going to be opening just a few weeks from now, next month in August. And it's about the northwestern Hawaiian Islands. And I'm holding here an aerial photograph of one of those northwestern Hawaiian Islands. This is the island of Nihoa. And to me, this looks like an extremely interesting but also kind of a scary place to visit. I've never been to any of these and probably never will go, but as you can see, Nihoa is a little volcanic remnant of what was once a much bigger island, and it has these very sheer cliffs as well as not much of a coastline. Well, people have been to Nihoa. People have actually, not only scientists have been there to do research, but we know that ancient Hawaiian people also visited Nihoa as well. And that's a story that we're going to be telling in the Journeys exhibit.
Oh, fantastic.
So, look for that next month. And, in the meantime, don't forget that you can come and visit the Bishop Museum website, because there are all kinds of things that you can find out there about what's happening right now, what's coming up in the future, and in addition to visiting us electronically, why don't you come on down and visit us in person if you are in the vicinity and see what's going on, because there's always kind of lots of cool stuff happening.
There's always something interesting every single day.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. Every single day. So till next Thursday when it'll be Throwback Thursday time again. I'm DeSoto Brown, and that's
I'm
Hadley, and bye.
Hoo-yo.